Hello and welcome to the online discourse Pathways to Social Justice, Equity and Inclusion, organized by South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. I'm your host, Rimsha Shahid, research analyst at SARIM, and today we have one of accredited human rights advocate, Mr. DB Sagar. Mr. Sagar is a globally recognized social justice advocate, social entrepreneur, and an experienced subject matter expert on program governance, public policy, and human rights. He has devoted his entire career to advancing governments, public services, and civil, human, and Dalit rights. With over 20 years of experience, Mr. Sagar brings substantial expertise in leading advocacy, litigation, governance, and public services efforts both at national and international levels. He regularly collaborates with a broad range of stakeholders, including federal agencies, policymakers, academia, and progressive allies in the course of these works. Mr. Sagar has briefed leadership of the U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, USAID, DFID, United Nations, World Bank, and European Commission on several occasions. He has testified before the UN Intergovernmental Negotiation on the Post-2015 Development Agenda, the UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, the UN Human Rights Subcommittee, the European Parliament, and the British House of Commons on matter of human rights, democracy, justice, and equality. He was actively engaged in the UN World Conference Against Racism in 2001. He hosted the first ever global march against caste discrimination in 2014 and the Global Conference on Dalit Rights in 2015. He co-authored several policies documents, including Reservation Affirmative Policy for Dalits in Nepal, Caste Freedom Index, Dalit Rights Global Declaration 2015, and policy memoranda to the EEOC and DOG to recognize and enforce caste as a protected classification under the Title VII Civil Rights Law, as caste is a form of ancestry or national origin and racial discrimination. He has given public speeches and lectures and interviews to news media, including the Associated Press and Bloomberg Law, and has written articles and reports and provided expert commentary on public policies. Mr. Sagar, I'm pleased to have you as our guest, and I must say that you have a very commendable trajectory. I'm confident that this discourse with you will turn out to be quite resourceful.
Thank you so much, Rimsha, having me. I'm pleased to be part of your event. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So I will now begin with my first question. My first question is, how do you believe systematic barriers and biases affect the experiences of minority communities in accessing opportunities and resources?
Excellent question. When you see the systematic barrier for minorities, you could see everywhere. It starts from the society, nation, community, and also the institutions and the systems, right? So everywhere you can see the systematic barriers against the minorities. And that is not just a kind of practical level, but also the political level, institutional level, and governance level. So I believe that it is a kind of very much strong wall against the minorities. And I found a very interesting is that the governance systems is designed to suppress and rule the minority by dividing their power of will and franchising them. Sorry for that. And having them in a different, the locations in terms of location in not just geographical, but also the power, resource, education level. So that is something is a challenge for minorities. And I believe that that's where the social resiliency comes, right? So to fight against this systematic barriers. I believe inequality, injustice is real, and even in the economic justice, social the justice system itself, and also the most recently the the climate justice. All these justice systems are not there yet to break these social barriers, I would say.
You're very right, as you said that I think the inequality and the system of biasness is getting stronger just because of governments and government agencies are not willing to bring equality and to crush this wall. So yeah, very well elaborated. I will now move towards my second question. In your opinion, what are some effective strategies for ensuring social justice, equity, and inclusion for of minority groups in various sectors such as education, employment, and healthcare?
Uh, Excellent question again. So, what I would believe is that this strategies, I would say, any strategy that is start from social justice or inclusion or diversities, those terms should be defined and refined by minority themselves. It should not come from the top, saying that okay, this is social justice for you. I have $20 for you. I'm giving to you as a social justice. Is your share of social fear. That is not a social justice. Social justice should come from the big team or social minorities group themselves should say, I am empowered. Social justice relate with the empowerment. It's relate with the power, sure, the idea of the governance and representation. So I believe that the we should be able, as a minority activist and advocate, to define what is social justice mean for a kind of minority community on the ground, whether he or she is able to provide the food on table to their children or not, or their children or any minorities family are whether they are able to send their children at a school or not, or whether they are able to get the rightful kind of social treatment or access on the institutions for the justice or rule of law or resources in order to develop their perspective and access into the society with the dignified life, right? So those are the things I believe. This is a time to redefine this term in terms of social justice, how you define the social justice. If you ask me, that could be a different meaning. But if you ask who is surviving day-to-day life on the ground, yes, he may say differently. And we need to adopt that definition of social justice, or we need to adopt that definition of equity, social equity, right? We are talking more about the social equality. Equality is there, but to ensuring their, prospect. But equity is more important today because having a equal share of resource, not only for the, to run their for the family, but also represent in the society, represent in the governance system, represent in the policy making system, and also exclusions. So I believe that when we just talk about social justice. So we need to redefine the meaning of social justice, meaning of the equity, and meaning of the inclusion for minority. If you could see currently in a political scenario or power sharing scenario in South Asian nation, I see that inclusion has been social inclusion or political inclusion has been misused, meaning that this inclusion should lift off the voice of minority group, but is lifting the voice of so-called politician to ensure their uh, maximum access in the political system by misusing inclusive framework. So that's why it is a time to reframe it and redefine it. And this term should not just a term, it is a living thing for minorities. When they are not owning this, justice system, or they are not owning the inclusion or equity system within their, lifestyle, then it won't make any difference for minority. That's what I believe.
Sure, I definitely second your opinion, and as you said that we need to redefine the terms of social justice, equity, and inclusion. I would like to add here that the societies and the agencies today are working on equality. Instead, I think that we should rather work on equity, which is a totally different thing than equality. Equity means that to provide someone as per their need. So we really need to work on equity rather than equality. So yeah, very well elaborated again. I would like to move towards my third question, which is, can you discuss an example of a successful initiative or project led by your organization, which is the International Commission for Dalit Rights, aimed at advancing societal justice and equity for marginalized individuals and communities as a whole?
Um, Excellent question again. So this is thank you for asking this question. Let me explain why the ICDR needed at this point, right? So when we started talking about the Dalit right issue or social justice, equality, and inclusion at the national level, you could see there are a number of national organizations, but I see the lack of the cross-national organization that could bring the national organization, national leader together at the cross-national level. And then also, if you see the cross-national level, there are or there is a lack of institutional framework where we can bring together the global leaders from the ground level to the upper level, and have together a conversations and dialogue, and to redefine those policies as we discuss, right? How these minorities or social underprivileged group or unrepresented group could have their own prospect, not only at the grassroots level or national level, but also the cross-national and then in the global level. So that's why we formed the International Commission for Dalit Rights in 2006. Since then, we have been a leading organization for advocating, litigating, and providing services for these minorities and social underrepresented group. We do litigate a number of issues, as you mentioned in my introduction, that we have been litigating to recognize and enforce the caste as a protected classification under the U.S. Civil rights law. We have been having a number of providing legal argument to the U.S. Agencies, relevant agencies that include the Equal Employment Opportunity Commissions, social civil rights divisions of U.S. Department of Justice, or any other organizations that they should recognize and enforce the caste as a prohibited classification. We are working right now. And second is, you could see that the more important issue is that we have been able to frame a kind of global advocacy and litigation framework, meaning that it's providing kind of global perspective to educate, advocate, and litigate on the issue of social justice for minorities, or defending Dalit rights around the globe, or globalizing this issue, not at the national or cross-national or regional level, limiting it there, but also coming beyond that, having a global leaders and actors to be aware and educate, and then lead and litigate an advocate on this issue. I would also give you a very good example of the US foreign policies. You could see right now, USAID is one of the international development actors, has officially endorsed the caste discrimination, or caste is a social development metric, right? So that is a huge accomplishment, I would say, because you could see that the international actors have not officially adopted the cash as a development framework, but now U.S. government and USAID has officially endorsed and has applied that work. Second, you could see the U.S. Foreign policies under the U.S. Department of State has officially started and funded the program to defend and promote the Dalit right for inclusive societies and inclusive democracy. So that is another huge, because US is a leading international actor, so not only just to defend democracy and freedom, but also promote the social equality, equity, and justice and human rights, both at the the international and UN level. And the third, I would say, United Nations is a global policy making body, right? Has started recognizing and redefine the terminologies and terms of the social policies. Or, for instance, you could see these international convention for all forms of racial discrimination, Article 1 and 2, they have started define the dissent in order to incorporate the caste or work and dissent, right? So these are the huge policy shift, I would say. You can see that global leaders and policymakers now aware a lot, and they are know that there are people, millions of people who need their support, and the new policy need to be incorporate their voice. I would also suggest that being able to lead and speak of not at the local level or the national level, but also the global level, and reach out there with your the strong voice is a significant, I would say, change, shift at the global policy arena. So so that is one area, right? I was talking about three layers of the organization. Second is it's about the policy reform, right? It's from this global level to the local level. We're not just talking about the global prospect, but also the cross-national and national prospect. Either that could be in Nepal or Bangladesh or Pakistan. Second, or any other caste-affected country, I would not limit that this issue is just exist in South Asia. This issue is a global issue. This is a kind of global prospect. We should have a global prospect on that. So that's what ICDR building up, that perspective, a global perspective about the rights of minorities, defending Dalit rights, or defending Adivasi minorities, religious. So those kind of religious minorities issue as well. And third, what we do is we are not just advocating, but also we are providing legal tools and services. We do provide the pro bono type of services where we can bring the global legal communities together so they can review and provide the technical support to the local legal communities in a caste-affected countries, or policymakers in a caste-affected country, in order to develop the new policy or reform the new policy. Right now, we are looking into the caste bias or any racial bias social justice system, particularly criminal justice system, right? We are also looking at economic justice system, climate justice system. So many issues coming together, and the minorities are not being able to defend and promote their rights and dignities and equity. So this is a very prime agenda for ICDR. We do collaborate. Our strategy is to not to work alone, but bring the local to global organizations and leaders together and collaborate with them in order to uh, promote the justice, rights, and dignity and inclusion of the minority groups through ICDR.
Much impressive. I really would like to appreciate your efforts and the work here the ICDR organization is working. And as you've already discussed about the global perspective and the approach, the integrative approach you are pursuing, basically together all the minority community groups and agencies and civil rights organization to work for the advocacy. The next question is, in your opinion, how you think that intersectionality and cross-cultural understandings play a role in developing an inclusive society for minority communities? And have you experienced any such incident or any such? Have you witnessed any such thing that where cross-cultural understanding and intersectionality have developed a prominent, a considerable change within the society?
Absolutely. Intersectionality and cross-cultural assembly is a foundation for promoting social justice, equity, and inclusion. Right. So in this arena, I would take it two part of it. One is within the minorities. You could see the minorities. There are so many minorities, very diversity among the minorities, right? We need to build the collaborative intersectionality and cross-cultural assembly among the minorities so that there will be stronger and powerful voice, and they will be able to, those minorities, this is a very interesting, is that they are able to cast their vote, but they are not able to transfer their vote into power, resource, and negotiation and bargaining for their well-being and good prosperity, right? Therefore, this intersectionality has to, it's not just a minority and non-minority. It's not just a Dalit and non-Dalit. It's not about the one religion and another religion in intersectionality. It is a more important to have an intersectional assembly, connectivity, empathy, and kind of collaboration among the minority. It's a very foundation. It is a very foundation for empowering the minority's voice. And second is cross-cultural or multicultural, I would say, assembly among these societies, right? If we are living in that particular society, they may have, and then that society have or has a multiple, groups, and they require a multiple assemblies. In terms of when we talk about the intersectionality and kind of cultural assembly, we think about just one religion to engage with another religious group, or one caste group to have intersectional or relation with another caste group. That is incomplete intersectionality. So we need to build it from the ground, having an intersectional assembly, I would say, assembly in the sense they can come together, build their voice, develop the common minimum understanding what they mean the intersectionality, what they mean the cultural assembly or cultural engagement, right? It's not adoption of somebody else cultural thing, but it is a matter of, uh, building the solidarity with them as well. If you, so that's what I think is a foundation for the minorities, not just the minorities in this 21st century. I would say it's a foundation for any human society in terms of building peace, security, justice, equality, and inclusion. Because if you are not strongly bound and build your own foundation, there will always this separation or ruler group who would like to divide you and make your voice less important than what they would like to build the society or lead the society or control the resources and power. They won't give you power. We have to get it right. How you will get it, meaning that building your intercultural, building among the minorities cultural assembly stronger and powerful, and be able to translate your vote into power, vote into your representation, vote into the resources. So that's what I would say inclusive democracy and also the cross cultural assembly. Just understanding wouldn't bring the change, right? We need an assembly now so that we can translate those cross cultural values, diversities into the social equity so that we will have equality.
Very right. And as you initially highlighted that in South Asia there are multiple minority communities, and as you might be aware that the largest community is Dalit, which is definitely not minority specifically within India, but is still considered a minority. I don't know what are the grounds, the structural grounds. Mm, so my question is, can you discuss the importance of cultural competence in promoting social justice, equity, and inclusion for minority groups, specifically Dalits, in various settings, as you know that they are the people who are most marginalized within South Asian countries, for sure.
The cultural competence is about self-esteem, right? If you are not able to define yourself and your self-esteem is not stronger enough to defend your dignity, your definition, your identity, then uh, what would happen is the other group will try to break you down, saying that, oh, you are lower, you are grounded, you are poor, you are minorities. For instance, as you mentioned very correctly, who have a largest population on the society and country, they are defined as a marginalized. They are defined as a socially underrepresented, right? That is not true. That is not a fact. In fact, the minorities group, who are maybe hardly 5% or 7%, are ruling the society, nation, holding power and resources. And they're saying we are majority. 7% are claiming they are majority of the society and nation. That's why they are governing. They are holding power. And more than 20%, or if you calculate, if you combine the Adivasis, Janjatis, or other minorities, or racial or minorities and the religious minorities combined together, they are majorities, and they are 93 to 95% or around 90%, let's say, they are becoming a minority. So see the frame. So that's why we need to redefine our identity, and we have to come up with very strong self-esteem identity that says, no, 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 we are not a minorities. No, we are not a underprivileged self. because we are underprivileged, because you are capturing all the resources by yourself, which is not rightful. You are not rightful to hold the 90% of national resources, uh, and 90% of minorities are not being able to, uh, access to the even 10% of resources. So that's where I would say this cultural competency is about your own identity. If I'm saying, okay, I represent Dalit, but I'm also Dalit, that my Dalit identity should be a kind of proud self-esteem. So why? Because it's not about breaking people. I wouldn't go like that definition. It's about the dignity, it's about the power, it's about the ideology, and it's about the equity of the human being who is, fighting and for social justice for millions of people. And it's about shifting one power to the another power. It's about the reallocating powers to the socially marginalized or socially underprivileged group, so-called underprivileged group, in fact, because they should not be underprivileged. They should not label as underprivileged if the resources is a power, if the, social value will treat and share equally, they will be equal people, right? So that's where I would say self-esteem is a foundation of cultural competence and your identity. If we define our identity in a way that positive stream, positive message, right? If you define your identity in a negative terminology, saying that as they do, right? As a operator will say, that Dalit or Adivasi or any Janjati or religion, any term you use, that would they will put the negative, definition, meaning that it's a broken, it's a under or the bottom of the society or something like that. But if you define yourself, you would like to define and promote and defend your human dignity, your self-respect and self-esteem, and that should be the cultural competence, meaning that you can stand wherever you stand with a powerful voice and the very very respective your identity, I would say.
Rightly said, and I believe that through inclusivity, we can definitely make oneself a dignified and give them a feeling of self-esteem. And as you might be aware that minority community is usually excluded from every single domain, be it political, social, economic, or any other domain. So yeah, self-esteem is very important, and cultural competence can only be achieved through self-esteem and dignity. So moving towards our another question, which is, in your experience, what are some common challenges faced by your organization in fostering equitable distribution of resources, inclusivity, and justice? It can be the experience of your personal organization, or you think that generally organization do face these sort of challenges.
There are two types of challenges when you are running an organization. One is external challenge, meaning that you will face a multiple cloud and challenges against organizations coming from the opponent groups, right? That is saying that why you need this. And so we should not. There is no such discrimination. Or now you can see there is no caste discrimination. There are no, issue of minority, right? There are a number of laws and policies in place, and this issue has been solved. So that kind of argument you will see from the outsider, or kind of trying to suppress the organizational voice, both uh, level. But when I say both, is at the national level or global level. They wouldn't let you to speak up and raise the voice in those particular platform. And second is the institutional level, meaning that if you are talking about ICDR itself have a so many we have strong demand, right, in a society. As I said, we have been trying to work and collaborate with number of organizations around the globe, and those organizations are lacking resources, technical support, and that obviously they will expect from ICDR, and ICDR itself does not have enough resources to address and provide the technical support to the the organization at the local level, at the ground level. So that is something as a very strong challenge as we have it. But other than that is also, I would say, kind of minimum understanding and having a kind of uh, you know uh, a kind of a global advocacy and mitigation strategy. When I say the global, it should. So you can see that the minority, that's where I was talking about having a minority cultural assembly. So within the minority, there are so many franchises, right? You could see the different voices saying the same thing, but a very different approach. And that is true. That is fine too. But those different approach and different strategy, different voices should come into a kind of a global single platform so that we can have a very strong power for voice. And that voice can translate into power, resources, and be able to negotiate at the policy making process. So that's why I think that's where we need to work more about building a kind of comprehensive uh, strategic framework where we can fit the different voices and bring the different diverse group and communities together, both at the national, regional, and the global framework. And I think that is something that ICDR has to improve and rebuild its own capacity, and also explore the resources so that we can support many organizations on the ground who have been facing every day very strong hardship, I would say.
Well, I would really like to appreciate your organization to surpass all the hurdles and obstacles. So this was the question regarding the challenges organization. Now I would like to ask you, like being an individual, what sort of personal experiences you have had in promoting social justice, equity, and inclusion for minority communities, and what you learned from those experiences.
I would say, let me rephrase. I'm a Dalit, right? So by birth, and I have gone through so many uh, painful experience of the caste-based discrimination or racial discrimination in the United States as well. There are so many type of discrimination, stereotype of discrimination. So my life is a full of painful experience of the social caste or racial discrimination and injustice. That painful experience helped me to rebuild my ideas and my resiliency, combating the discrimination both at the national level and the global level. I came from Nepal, my original place. When I went to school, very first day, what I learned is my caste. So that's how the education system we have, right? The first day when I went to school, my teacher said, "Oh, you are from, so-called lower caste group, so you should not enter into the school office. You should not touch the water pot, or you should not sit together while eating food with your classmate, or you have to sit here, or you should not go there." So there were so many boundaries. Imagine that you are entering into a school or going to school, having so many, the dream and so many excitement as a child, as in 5, 6, and your teacher will set a boundary for yourself and identify who you are in a negative prospect. That would definitely uh, disturb your mind as a kid, right? So that's how I started my life. I would always say that the first thing I learned is my identity. I realized that my identity somewhere, I was, even at that time, when I went to the very first day at the school, even at that time, I realized there is something not right. That's why they are trying to create a boundary for myself, for me, not for other kids, right? So those painful experience, and that is not stay only there at a primary school. When I went to the middle school, there were more boundaries. When I went to the high school, there was more boundaries. When I came to the society to do something, there was more boundary at a workplace. There were more boundary as a civil society. There were more boundary in the political system. When I tried to, engage in a political process, there were more boundaries and so many boundaries and walls against me. So I realized that there are so many boundaries against me, and there are no boundary for some other people, right? So that is something always encouraged me to build the organization, to build our voice, to fight and break down those boundaries and walls. So that's how I started. I started my early social activism as a journalist. I started writing articles and publishing magazines. I published a number of magazines in there, and then I started forming organization and bringing together a number of peoples, like-minded people, and to be an advocate. I started serving people as lawyers, human rights defenders on the grounds, and then eventually I started forming a national organization, then the cross-national, and then the international organization. That's where I am right now, leading a international commission for Dalit rights. But yes, I do have so many painful stories, but those painful stories never break me or never stop me fighting against those walls. You could see any walls in front of me. I will try to break those walls and move ahead so that my children or my community children should not face or should not go through the same walls and same boundaries, and should not face those kind of discrimination, harassment, unequal treatment, or or difference treatment from the society or teachers or their co-worker at a workplace. That's where we are, and right now that's where I am kind of heading towards in terms of organization level, fighting, ensuring equal treatment for Dalit or minorities or racial minorities at workplace, equal treatment at the work, at the community or public place, have a equal access in the policy or the the resource level. So that's where we are. And then the coming from a very remote uh, place of Nepal in South Asia to was leading a global organization uh, based in Washington, D.C. is itself a huge uh, personal transformation and huge matter of struggle. It's not easy to lead an organization uh, who was uh, grew up uh, in a very remote uh, uh, village of Nepal. It's a matter of pride too, and that this is an example. If I can coming from that far, then any person can do, and they can change themselves, and they can build their self-esteem and cultural and personal competence to resist to resist these the inequality, injustice, and discrimination anywhere and anytime. So that's what I can say.
Uh, sure. I really praise your untiring efforts, and I think your pain have made you what you are today, a strong face and supporter of minority communities throughout the globe. And I really praise you for this and for all these efforts. You are really doing a great job. And as your profile, your trajectory shows that you have testified on like notable platforms like UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination and the UN Human Rights Subcommittee, and have briefed on various notable platforms as well. So this is my last question for sure. What sort of developments you have witnessed regarding the elimination of discrimination at global level afterwards?
Excellent. So when I started, representing, participating in the global platform such as UN SORT or Committee for Elimination of Racial Discrimination or World Conference Against Racism. At that point, they were a Dalit issue or minorities issue, in fact, in nowhere on the table. So people were not aware what is Dalit right means, what is caste discrimination means, what is the access for these Dalit communities, where they live, how they do. So it's a very unknown issue and agenda. But now, if you go anywhere, this issue, the defending Dalit rights or minority rights, is been a global agenda. It's been a global kind of matter of issue, right? Global matter. So that is one big shift you could see from over a 2 decade of activism. Second, you could see the redefinition, defining those international policies and international laws and practices to incorporate caste or Dalit rights or minority rights within the global framework or global policies. So that's the second. And third is not just a definition, but also engaging those, the communities themselves and try to bring their representation at the local, national, cross-national, and global level is also emerging. And this issue has been emerging at a global platform. And I think this is significant. This is significant. I know it will take up more decades and it will take more times to ensure the fully inclusion of Dalit rights and Dalit in a society and a global platform as well. But it is emerging. So this is something I would say the difference. Uh, in addition to that, I would also say the to access of the Dalit communities or leaders or minority leaders into the global platform. Now they can go and participate and speak themselves rather than speak through somebody else, right? So now that so in 2001 or 19 in 2000 there were uh, agent, I would say, or representative who could we have to tell them, could you please talk about our issues? But now we can go ourselves and speak and put our agenda strongly, forcefully at any global platform that includes United Nations or any other, the global platform. So I think that's a huge policy shift and advocacy shift as well.
I must say that you really have came a long way as briefing at the prestigious platforms like UN European Commission is definitely not a little thing, and your efforts, your struggle have made you do all these things. And I wish and I hope that you and your organization will keep on working like that, working like tirelessly. So, yeah, that was it from my side. Any last comments you would like to add from our platform?
Um, I would say thank you, Rimsha, for your, the effort and connecting me and giving me this platform to speak up and to share my thoughts. Second, I would say, the challenges. We often focus more on challenging side. I mean, any life, any sector, any society, even who are holding 90% of resources, they have so many challenges. So challenges is not our, mm, breaker to moving forward. The moving forward or painful experience is not the stopper. So what I'm trying to say is that those challenges, painful experience, the kind of suffering should bring the positive uh, effort so that we can change the society. And the main message I would like to say is that having a self-esteem, that you can fight, you can change and see your next generation. If you are facing now, I would like to make sure that my son shouldn't face in his life. So that would make a difference and that would bring people together. That would bring minorities power and their vote. If you see now in particularly South Asia and any democratic society or any societies that minority vote has been used as a commodity, meaning that when you need election time, they go reach out to minority for their vote. Once they get a vote, they will never reach out that, right? Because it's not been defined as a political transformation tool. So vote should be a tool to transfer their power, their voice, and it's not happening because somewhere is lack of the self-esteem. I have heard the number of the even Dalit organizers says, why should we say to Dalit? Why should not we go with something else? Or defining their is having a kind of confusion of their own identity. Who I am. If you are not able to define yourself, then how you will deliver your service, right? So that's where this is not the minority fault side, I would say. This is something that those people who are holding the power resources, they're trying to buying the agent from the minorities and trying to build a class and the crass and coming kind of confusion among the minorities, not being able to define and identify and, to understand who they are. So I think this is something is kind of another challenge we have, I would say. But this challenge should go if we know who I am. If I can say I am such and such person, and I have this, the ability to change, and that message should deliver among the minorities, so that they should have self-esteem, self-respect, and the proudness about who they are, right? So I think that would make difference. Once again, Rimsha, thank you so much for your time. Did I pronounce your name correctly, please?
Yeah, it's fine. It's correct.
Okay.
I really would like to thank you for such a valuable input you have shared right now. Really, you have discussed all the key details and all the structural ground realities that has been existing. I don't know, like for many years, and as you said that the caste and class structure has been definitely deeply rooted, and a mindset of these discriminatory practices is definitely deeply rooted, and which is now day by day is gaining strength rather than weakening all these practices. So thank you so much for your views, for your opinions. I really am obliged for you to sparing your precious time for this discussion and for making such an insightful talk.
Thank you so much for your time again. And hopefully we will talk and work at in future as well. Thank you.
Hopefully, I really hope to collaborate with you and with your organization in future ahead.
Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. Good luck. Good luck for your future projects and efforts. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.